Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to the CEO of IIRC, Mr. Paul Druckmann.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's amazing to see such a full room, people traveling from all over the world. Big thank you for coming and for making this such a special event. What an inspirational start to the IIRC's third pilot program conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to invite you to step into my shoes for a few minutes, if you can, as I share with you a quite remarkable journey over the last 9 months since the last pilot program conference. When we met in September 2012, I reported a significant growth in the pilot program community during our first year and described the global momentum that had been created. This momentum was the foundation for our belief that integrated reporting would be the next significant step forward in the evolution of corporate reporting. 9 months on, and I can report a further significant strengthening of the pilot program as we reach the landmark 100th, I was going to say 100th participant in the business network, complemented by investor groups of over 50 institutional investors. Today, the pilot program, we said before, is active in 25 countries, bringing to life 2 of the IIRC's strategic goals. The first is to be market-led, responding to the needs of business, investors, and civil society. And secondly, to be truly global in nature and outlook. Right. It is not for nothing that we describe the pilot program as the innovation hub of the IIRC. The yearbook published last year and the behavioral research by Blacksun form part of the growing body of evidence that is pointing to the real and tangible benefits of integrated reporting. This is further supported by the study published last month by GRI, which looked at the experiences of those businesses publishing self-declared integrated reports. And to quote from that study, without fail, stakeholders responded positively to integrated reporting. But I can do more today than update you on the growth of our community of innovators, because the last year has defined much more by what is happening outside of this immediate circle and the momentum for change that is building in the business, investor, and regulatory communities worldwide. Looking back on my words to you last year at the conference, I remember feeling that we were pushing a very large snowball uphill. The snowball was getting bigger in size, but only because of the willpower and commitment of the people in this room, the champions and the innovators of integrated reporting. Today, we are pushing an even larger snowball just as hard. But the job actually seems slightly easier because we're supported by more people in more places. As the chairman of the Bank of America said, if you want to go far, go together. And I hope that's what we are achieving. In Australia, as the government prepares to host the G20 in 2014, the Australian Treasury has expressed a keen interest in assisting integrated reporting as one of the supporting themes for the work on transparency, instilling, I hope, a culture of financial stability and encouraging investment in strategically important industry sectors. In Japan, there is an increasing interest and support for corporate reporting reform as part of a wider package of measures to reassert a focus on long-term investment and unlock corporate value. The Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, METI, has established a corporate reporting laboratory to examine the ways that reporting can support these strategic goals. And the newly elected Prime Minister Abe has a theory of Abenomics, which I learnt about on my trip there a couple of weeks ago. And to quote from Prime Minister Abe, you have to listen carefully to this. Wet firewood will not ignite even if lighter fuel is applied. It is only recently that the firewood has dried and lighter fuel has been applied. Therefore, I hope precisely now, at this very moment, many people will light up the economy. Indeed, the mood has changed, and I believe the real challenge starts now. So there is somebody who's trying to make a change. And this only supports what our chairman, Mervyn King, often says, that there's nothing quite like an idea whose time has come. In the European Union, the policy makers have taken the first important step towards integrated reporting with the recent proposals on non-financial reporting. The European Commission stated, "We are following with great interest the evolution of the integrated reporting concept, in particular the work of the International Integrated Reporting Council." And Richard Howitt, who will be speaking later today, member of the European Parliament and an IRC ambassador, commented in his own words, "I am determined in my own role to ensure that the Commission's proposals are a stepping stone towards integrated reporting being accepted internationally." At the same time, in the UK, the IRC is part of a group established by the Financial Reporting Council, advising on the guidance that will underpin the UK government's new strategy report. In South Africa, as you know, the requirement under King III Corporate Governance Code to publish an integrated report has been incorporated into the Johannesburg Stock Exchange listing requirements. Businesses in South Africa are now preparing for their third year of integrated reporting. And the evidence shows that these reports are increasingly valuable to investors, and the reporting process and efficiencies are benefiting the businesses that are going through that. And again, please speak to those South African companies in the breaks if you can. In the USA, it is the stock exchanges, such as NASDAQ, and investors who are increasingly at the forefront of demanding changes in corporate reporting. And I was delighted myself to be present at the US launch of the consultation draft hosted at NASDAQ. So since the start of 2013, I've also spoken twice at the APEC, the Asia-Pacific Economic Community, the Business Advisory Council, a group of over 60 business leaders from the 23 APEC countries who advise the finance ministers of those countries. In Manila and in Singapore, Michael Bray of the Australian Energy Institute was to the fore in support of integrated reporting. And in Singapore, I was also supported by DBS and Arasag Partners from our pilot program, whose practical experiences added a great deal of substance to our discussions. You sitting out there, are our best advocates. I've always said it, and I do mean it. The outside world listens to you, and you make the difference. Believe it. These are just a few of the highlights, as you can imagine, over an extraordinary 9 months. But the message is consistent wherever I go around the world, and that is that people want more. The challenge now is to meet that demand for more information, the framework, guidance, best practice examples, assurance, and so the list goes on. Now, with the release of the consultation draft of the framework, supplemented by the background papers on materiality, business model, and the capitals, we are beginning, I hope, to meet this demand which continues to rise. Very shortly, you will see the results, as I said, of the PwC's benchmarking exercise and of the investor network's critique of some of the integrated reports. We're still on that journey that we always talk about, but the clear message that I take is that we have reached a turning point. We really have. And hopefully the next 2 days will tease out some of the more practical innovations that will lead to an increase in the quality of published integrated reports in the future. Now, while the scale of our achievements have been impressive, I do not want to underestimate the scale of the challenge we face going forward. Nor do I want to lose sight of the rationale that is, at least for me, the driving force behind integrated reporting. I want to share with you some of those thoughts and analysis at a personal level. The reality is that narrative and non-financial reporting is the poor relation to the financials, often dismissed as spin and PR, when it should be the rich source of value-relevant information. Now, I'm talking to the wrong audience here, but we all know who I'm talking about. This failure of communications can have a significant knock-on effect and contribute, in my view, to market failure. Information, after all, really is the lifeblood of our capital markets. Yet, it often appears that only the financials are trusted by the providers of financial capital, the business journalists who report on them, and even the regulators and the standard setters. This has led to an increased and understandable focus on quantification and metrics, which often go in search of the magic euro equivalent. This then becomes the basis for the incentives for business and investors, shaping our behavior and the outcomes that are derived. The financial community is often dismissive of the narrative and financial information, which is often disconnected from the financial statements themselves. Yet this high quality information may in fact be just as useful, if not more useful, by painting a more accurate and balanced picture of the risks and, as we all know, the value creation opportunities presented in business. This over-reliance on financial data and the dismissal of other relevant information has contributed, in my view, to market instability and undermined the resilience of business. And this trend has come at almost precisely the wrong time. In an era when less of the value of business can be accounted for through the financial statements, the whole world has been paying more and more attention to refining the quality of that financial data. This is not just a corporate reporting issue. It goes to the very heart of our understanding of capitalism. We have taken our eye off the ball in terms of understanding what has made capitalism so successful and why capitalism remains today's economic model for encouraging prosperity, opportunity, and lifting people out of poverty. As a result of this misalignment, short-term decisions have been made by businesses and investors, decisions that make sense on the basis of the facts available to institutions at the time, but that are increasingly short-term. Research tells us, and you may have heard this statistic, that the average length of time that US investors hold shares in a company has fallen from 7 years to 7 months over 50 years, partly because the future visibility is low. Fog, as this slide demonstrates, causes low visibility when driving a car, and it forces us to slow down and increases our risk of having a crash. Well, 5 years ago, we had that crash. And now it is time to put the pieces together again, but in a different order. And that order needs to support business and market resilience and help to achieve sustainable economic outcomes. I believe that corporate reporting had more than a walk-on part in the events of 5 years ago, an unpopular statement in some quarters. But I'm determined that we should play our part to making sure that that's less likely to happen again. And after all, I believe that corporate reporting influences behavior. I also believe that you wouldn't be here if you didn't agree with that. In this room today, I see the people who have a role in re-energizing the business model, placing it at the heart of the future of reporting, and recreating popular support for an economic system that is capable of encouraging investment in people and ideas, as well as shepherding the physical, natural, and financial resources that are essential for business success. So this conference of the pilot program community is so important to me, and I hope that it is to you too. Big asks out of you over the next 2 days. It is important not just because we have essential work to do to test the framework, ensuring that it is always, of course, fit for purpose, but also because we are undertaking as a broader theme to re-engage and re-energize the spirit of capitalism and to re-establish the confidence that enterprise can bring to our economy. In Northern Ireland, as I speak, the G8 leaders will turn their attention to the issues of business transparency, a theme that is likely to dominate the G8 and the G20 discussions over the next 2 years. We live, as Mervyn King says, in an era of radical transparency, brought about by an army of stakeholders equipped with the technology to shine a light on corporate behavior and sometimes misbehavior. This week's G8 meeting and the related agenda of G20 provides an opportunity to lock in the benefits of transparency by connecting them to the two major public policy issues of our generation: financial stability and sustainability. As we have discussed, transparency is good for businesses that benefit from a low cost of capital. It is good for investors who gain access to higher quality information on which to make investment decisions. And it is good for the economy, which benefits from a more efficient and productive allocation of capital. What is needed now is concise information that reveals more about the levers of business decision-making that are being pulled, the strategic focus, and the issues that are important on value creation today and into the future. And the oft-quoted poet T.S. Eliot, his statement of, "Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information?" At the IRC, we are in favor of transparency for a purpose. And the purpose is to bring about a change of behavior in businesses and their providers of financial capital. I hope, therefore, that the concepts of materiality will find its way into the discussions of policymakers, resulting in measures that promote transparency, allied to relevance and conciseness of information. So, before concluding, I would like to thank our hosts and partner, PwC, who have worked with my team to produce an exceptional and rich program for the next 2 days. You saw how it started. And I would like also to thank the IRC team that supports me, whose work is making all the difference in every part of the world. Thank you. Above all, I would like to thank you, the change makers of your organizations who are daring to challenge convention and bring integrated reporting to life as a new business language that will do so much to strengthen our world. And in the process of changing the language of business, I do believe that we are in the process of changing the world. Big thoughts, but I'm passionate about it. Creating a better and more resilient environment in which to invest and create the conditions for sustainable development and prosperity. In thinking of the scale of change we are embarking upon, the kind of people it takes to make this happen is the other thought. And I'm reminded of the words of the late, and inverted commas, great Apple founder Steve Jobs. And his words were typical of Steve Jobs. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while they may seem to be the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So here's to you, all of you, the innovators. Let's have a great conference and continue to make change happen. Thank you.